Right, I can start to see some little eyes turning up now. Right, I'll start now. Hello guys, my name's Charlie. I'm one of the marketing team here at I2 Media. We produce Train. We're obviously working from home right now. We threw up the poll the other day to see what kind of questions people had, and the dominant response that people had is trouble with improvising exercises at home. So what we wanted to do is just try and offer any help support that we can offer. Now, my background is in nutrition. I did nutrition research both at Newcastle and at Leeds universities, and studied marketing, but I've got a large history of personal training and coaching in boxing with a specific interest in injury rehab. So I've worked a lot with people with frozen hips, broken bones, people who've got arthritis, bad backs, neurological conditions. That's my personal background. So if anybody has any questions about how to improvise and exercise around an injury, make sure to throw it in there. But when it comes to improvising exercises, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Team Train page. Now, I'm not sure if you can do this whilst you're watching the stream, but I am currently going into the topic section of the page. So I'm going into the top of the page, clicking on the workouts tabs under topics, and I've currently got today's workout. I don't know how many people. Hi, Elena. Thanks for your comment. I don't know how many people have done today's workout already. I've got mine planned for as soon as we finish this. Hopefully I can get my time to do it. But exercises such as chest press, when you're thinking about how to improvise around that, you just got to think about what is the benefit of a chest press over any other exercise. Obviously, you're going to get some extra depth because with a chest press, you've got the dumbbells, you're able to go a lot further back. Immediate response, stick your hands on top of something so you can get that extra depth. Also think you got the shape of the handles. Get some push-up handles, use some dumbbells, find anything cylindrical that you can put on the floor, use water bottles that'll add some instability. Just try and think of the exercise you're trying to do and add some stuff around it. Now, if anybody's got any questions, throw them in. I'm just going to be sat here getting on with my work. So if anybody's got any ideas, throw them in the sidebar. Otherwise, I'll end up chatting myself into oblivion until my voice gets coarse. So Elena, did you have anything you wanted to ask about? Anything you wanted to throw in? Let's see if that's still working. Yep. Another thing when it comes to your improvising exercises, get experimental with it. Mix it up a little bit. You don't have to follow necessarily the absolute gold standard for everything. So when I want to add more difficulty, I just take my hiking backpack, I throw some weight into it, go for a walk, go for a run, do some push-ups. It doesn't even need to be proper weight. I remember once having a series of weight plates falling out the back of my bag because I didn't learn to pack it properly. So instead, just stuff it with a duvet, stuff it with some towels, and then fill it with tins of beans. Anything you've got that's heavy enough will do. So what was the other questions in there? I've given up all hope and I just want cookies. Fair enough. Can't blame you. I don't think I'm the only one who's managed to gain weight over the lockdown. I need help improvising exercises or motivation exercising by yourself. That is fair enough. I know Sloshy threw that in there. I think the questions everyone mentioned before was what most people in my clients struggle with. Yeah. Is that just with regards to improvising exercises then? I mean, use a towel. A good way you can improvise, take a towel, throw it around your foot, grab it in a bicep curl position. As you push your foot away, resist it with the bicep. And then when you pull it back up, you can resist it with your leg. It's a good counter movement. If you've got someone at home with you, you can do the old Cali muscle prison workouts. You can use a bin bag. Bin bags work brilliantly. And you just flip and rotate a bin bag over itself. One person holds it and does bicep curls. The other person will grab it on the other end and pull it down. They're doing tricep extensions. Works brilliantly. Throw them over your shoulder. You can do some squats, do some lunges with someone on your shoulders. It's not hard to add some extra weight to things, but it's harder to give appreciation to an exercise that it deserves. A push-up is not a bench press. So instead of constantly trying to think of it as how can I make a push-up as close to a bench press as possible, how can you do the best push-up that you can do? Think of a standard military push-up, elbows nice and tight, fingers facing forwards, going as slow as possible coming down, really tearing up that muscle. Because if we want to grow, we're trying to tear a muscle. That is the whole idea of trying to build your body. You are tearing it down in order to make it stronger. So if we think of a push-up, even if you can't do a full push-up, start on your knees. I used to run a bodyweight class years ago. I ran a bodyweight class, and the majority of the people in that class were actually elderly women. And I'm talking women who are in their 60s plus. And these women would come into my class and they were consistently saying, I'm unable to do a push-up. I've never done a push-up in my life. And these are women who've been training since the 70s and 80s and they've still never done a push-up. What we started with is getting every single person in the room onto their knees. And it was all about the slow, steady control coming down. You can get up however you like, at which point, you know, everybody would roll about, get themselves back up, and then slowly control themselves back down again. Once you're at the bottom, hold it. Push as hard as you can. If you can't get up, just keep holding it until you give away. And if you keep repeating that, eventually that will translate into strength. Over time, that will only get stronger. You'll be able to add more reps and more reps and more reps, but you're using the exercise for what the exercise is for. Yes, you can add weight to it. I have a weight vest. I picked it up for probably about £10 or $10, $12 in a supermarket, and I just saw it and bought it, and I use that for everything. I use it when I get on the pull-up bar. I do it when I do my push-ups. I use it when I go for my runs. It's a super inexpensive and easy way to add just that little bit more difficulty. But if you haven't got that, just use a backpack. Throw something in a backpack and use that. Now, for people who are giving up hope, it's understandable, but the main thing to remember with any of this is that fitness is a habit. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint, as we've all heard before. So it's about trying to find whatever is your minimum. What is the minimum that you can commit to? Be it a 1 mile run once a week. Are you running a mile more than you would have run otherwise? I think we're back. Let's get some people to join in again. It's nice of Facebook to crash it. Hello. Oh, we got people back. Sorry, the stream seemed to cut out there. Now, I noticed on the last one, we had Craig asking about my take on creatine on a low carb diet. Craig, it entirely depends on what result you're trying to get. So for a lot of people who are questioning taking supplements, there's only a few that have really been proven to work conclusively. Creatine is one of them, and creatine is actually the most researched supplement out of all of them. Bar protein, if you consider protein a supplement. I personally don't. I just consider it a macronutrient. But what creatine does is two things. Number one, when you are burning energy at a rapid rate, when you need immediate access to energy, you use something just called ATP. And ATP, adenosine triphosphate, just goes to your muscle and it gets it working. What creatine does is it just restores phosphate groups to the broken ATP. So adenosine triphosphate gets broken into adenosine diphosphate, meaning it loses one of its phosphate groups. What creatine does is it forms creatine phosphate and it just throws the phosphate back on so it can immediately start producing energy in the body again. That's all creatine does. So a lot of people will take creatine believing that it causes large amounts of muscle growth and so on. It does and it doesn't. If you're a sprinter, that immediate access to the extra power is fantastic. Because a sprint, you know, you're getting it over in a few seconds. I was a boxer. I used to take creatine for that as well, because you want that fast twitch response. You want that muscle to be firing and immediately restoring to go for more energy. It's only really going to affect the first 5 seconds of exercise. After you've gone past that 5-second mark, you're getting into the anaerobic threshold, after which point creatine serves no purpose. Now, as I said, there are two benefits to creatine. The first is that where it's reproducing ATP and giving you that immediate source of energy within that 5-second window. The second thing creatine does is it attracts water, and it will draw water into the muscle. And this is why a lot of people will take creatine and they'll go into the illusion that they've put on loads of size. I've seen it happen 100 times. Now, I know I may not be the biggest guy on earth, but I used to train a lot of big guys. They would all take creatine, they would start getting bigger, they would stop taking creatine, they would lose their size, and they would go on the crusade, abysmal tyranny, misery of saying that they've lost size. You've lost water. That's what's happened. Now, there are a lot of benefits of having that water in the muscle. First of all, it's lubricating. It's going to be helping to attract more nutrients into the muscle as you're working. It's also going to help with recovery by having that additional water there. And yes, having that little bit of extra size does add up. I mean, you'll all aware that Thor, Hafthor Bjornsson's just broken the 501 deadlift. I mean, the guy weighs 205 kilograms and he's about between 6'7" and 6'9". The guy's huge. So just having extra size will benefit you. With regard to having a low carb diet, it shouldn't really have too monumental of a difference either side. It will be useful for the fact that if you've depleted your glycogen supplies in said muscle, so glycogen is the carbohydrate storage molecule that's inside muscles. Glycogen stores 4 times as much water as it does for its own size. So for every molecule of glycogen, you're going to have 4 molecules of water. The good thing about taking creatine is when you've got creatine inside there, that's going to help to rehydrate that muscle. So it might make up for some of the hydration that you're losing from having that lack of glycogen. But it depends on how low carb you're going. If you're talking keto, where you're eating 50 grams of carbs or less per day, yes, you're going to have quite a depleted glycogen status compared to if you're on, say, 150 grams plus, where most people will be able to maintain a pretty healthy level. Either way, if you're taking creatine, the purpose should mainly be for increasing that 5-second window. So let's say you're going for a maximal lift on strength or powerlifting, it's really useful there. If you're going for a sprint, if you're a boxer, if you're a kickboxer, if you're doing martial arts, if you're doing CrossFit, hip-based work where that first 5 seconds really counts, fantastic. Doesn't hurt to take it. The current research shows that you can take it for up to 3 months, but there's simply never been any research after 3 months. That's why we say within 3 months. It's just because there's no evidence to say it's damaging or helpful after that point. That's all. I wouldn't recommend anything such as a loading phase or deloading, or because it's simply not been shown to have any effect. Vegans and vegetarians, people who don't eat red meat, they're going to have a lower creatine status in their body. Simply because that is the main source of our creatine, as it does come from red meat. So you may benefit from a loading phase of a vegetarian or vegan creatine supplement if you are vegan or vegetarian, and that could be quite beneficial. But if you're a regular meat eater, there's no need for a loading phase either. Do we have anybody else asking any more questions? I've got a wave from Stephanie on the old chat. Hi, Steph. Thank you very much, Gio. Right, did we have any questions on the main poll either? Again, just keep throwing in your questions. I'm here for the next 13 minutes from this point on. I know there's a few people in here, but make use of your time, make use of my time, throw in some questions. I want to see what you have to say. I need help starting a diet. I briefly alluded to that on the last one. Starting a diet is all about habit. When I used to do nutrition consultations and when I used to work as a personal trainer, and I used to see many people a day, I'm talking hours of back-to-back consultations, there was one question I never asked anyone about, and there was only probably 2 people who ever addressed it, is the fact that I never once asked anybody about their alcohol intake. Main reason being is I had one person say, you didn't ask me about my alcohol, and I said, it's the last thing you're going to change, so why would it be the first thing that I ask about? And it's a way to keep thinking about your diet, is to go, what is something that's crucially important to me that I really don't want to change? That should be the last thing you should change. Anything that's going to make you miserable is the last thing you should focus on. Focus on the easy stuff first, such as, can you take a little bit off your plate? Can you add a little bit more fruit and veg? Could you add a little bit of a protein or take away a little bit of the fat? And that'll help get those calories down. We've got a question here from Stephanie about creatine. Is creatine only useful if training for something specific, or can you consistently use it for general use? I wouldn't say that there's any benefit to creatine if you're not regularly training, simply because creatine is only for that first 5 seconds of exercise. So if you're not regularly doing that 5 seconds of exercise, I don't personally see a huge benefit of taking it. Not to say that there isn't a downside. However, As I mentioned before, there's no evidence to say what happens if you take creatine for more than 3 months. So that basically means if you're going to go and take creatine every single day for 3.5 months and you end up with a kidney problem as a result of it, don't blame me. But no, I would say general use depends on what that general use is. It won't do you any damage. It probably won't do you any benefit. So it depends on whether you want to spend a $5 a month on it. Geo. Can you further break down anaerobic glycolysis? What do you want to know? So, anaerobic glycolysis. So, respiration was my main subject of interest when I did nutritional biochemistry, so I can talk about this all day. Anaerobic glycolysis, quite simply, is where you're taking a molecule of glucose and you're breaking it down without oxygen. So, that's going to go up to about the 10-second mark if you're training. Now, because you're not using oxygen, there is no useful byproduct. So in normal respiration, such as what we're all doing right now, breathing in and out, we're mainly burning fat, we're exhaling carbon dioxide and water. With anaerobic glycolysis, what you're producing instead is lactic acid, because you haven't got any oxygen to make the carbon dioxide. That lactic acid is the burn that you're feeling in your legs. That's why it doesn't last so long. There's a lot of theories about anaerobic respiration, saying that that the burn is the reason that you can't keep going, but as we've seen with a lot of people, they can push through that burn. The nutshell of it is it's just a really simple way to break down a molecule of glucose. You split it up, you create pyruvate, and then that gets moved into ATP, and then that ATP will continue to fire the muscle. It's a very, very simple way to burn energy. Stephanie, do you have any advice for getting motivated to train when you are nervous about going out of the house? Very good question. Very, very good question. Now, I always talk about having your minimums. A large amount of the people that I train have social anxiety. It is not as rare as you would think. When you're thinking of your training, try and start early in the day. Too many of us rely on motivation and not enough on habit and discipline. So when I say start early in the day, I'm talking first thing in the morning when you're groggy and tired. Don't think, oh, I need to go for a run today. I need to go for a run and start beating yourself up. Start thinking, I'm going to go for a run later. And just get that in your head immediately. Get that plan in place. And as you go through the day, every decision you make, just keep reminding yourself, oh yes, I have a run later. I've got to run later. Then it just becomes a fact. You are going for a run later. That is what's going to happen. Then you just need to do the one crucial step. Put your shoes on. Get into your training gear and put your shoes on. You don't have to go outside. You don't have to go outside yet. Just get your training gear on. You're starting to break down these barriers. You've psyched yourself up for it all day. It's become a fact. And as you slowly work through the day, you're going to slowly start building that momentum for wanting to go outside. So once you've got your shoes on, got your training gear on, it's just going to happen. You're not going to have to think twice about it. The next thing you know, you'll be out the door and you'll be gone. Simple as that. Hello, Marcy. When starting to train, how long should workouts be and how often? A very, very good question. Now, I know obviously you've done your boxing before. When you say how long should your workouts be, I would say as long as they're enjoyable. If you enjoy doing 10 minutes, just do 10 minutes. If you enjoy doing an hour, do an hour. If you're starting to get really, really sore, maybe lay off a little bit. When it comes to how often, again, as much as you can enjoy. Now, if you're into your fitness and you're enjoying it, use that as your motivation and don't try and beat yourself up. A lot of people get into fitness and they're going, I'm not doing enough. You start to push it too hard, the motivation starts to run out. The next thing you know, you're sore and tired. You should just do as enough as to have fun with it. That's what really matters. Now, if you're someone who really struggles to train, I would say set up a really simple minimum. So when I started getting into fitness, over a decade ago now, it's a long time ago, I started training, I would go for a 1 mile run and that was it. And I would just try and do that 1 mile run as many times as I could in a week. And eventually I was doing them back to back, but it all started with I would go for a 1 mile run once a week. That was enough for chubby old me to get started. When you're working out at home, I would recommend just following the workouts we've got in here and take them as easy or as difficult as you want to. They're very, very simple workouts. Just try and keep it as minimal as possible. Just do as much as you find enjoyable. You don't want to start making yourself suffer for it, but 3 sessions a week, that would do you. If you get into 3 sessions a week, that would do you a lot of favors to begin with. Do we have any more questions? Getting notifications popping up here. Another thing, when I started training, everything was 3x10s, and this was in a gym. And again, I would just have a basic set where I would go, I'm going to do 4 machines. I'm going to do my warm-up, which was 10 minutes. I'm going to do 4 machines, 3 sets of 10, and then I'm going to leave. And I would do that 3 times a week because that was a minimum that I was happy to do, and it was enjoyable. I was never massively sore afterwards. And then it just became a bit of an addiction. And then it was about chasing being sore, and it was about chasing making it difficult. That's something that comes with time. Hello, Polly. My workouts are my cup of coffee in the morning. It's a habit and a source of stress managing. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. We've actually obviously got Mark Wahlberg in this month's issue of Train Mag, and what I find so interesting about him, he goes back to all the way to be Marky Mark, but you'll see that he's so young for his age, quite simply because he's trained so consistently throughout his life. He's constantly kept those stress levels down. There's a lot of studies into people with older age, so octogenarians, nonagenarians, decagenarians, people who live 100 plus, and what they notice that there's only one common theme among all these people. There is nothing that ties them together bar one thing, and they're all very laid back. They're all very low stress people. It's the only thing they can use to associate them. So the lower you can keep your stress, the healthier you're going to be. The healthier you are, the easier it is to keep working out. I have my coffee every single morning, not necessarily for the caffeine. It's just part of my morning ritual. It's good for your mental health. It's just good to keep the routine. Thanks for throwing that in there, Polly. Does anyone else have any more questions? I keep seeing this this little eye in my corner going up and down, so I know that there are people out there. Scrolling back up through here. Do you have any advice? So I'm training how long to work on speed often. Okay, I've read these. Got about another 5 minutes before we sign off. Does anybody else have anything to throw in? No? Let's have a look on the page. I need help starting a diet. I do want to come back around to that one. There's one thing that I do want to throw in. Get an app and start tracking. There's one universal law of dieting, and it is inarguable. You cannot argue with it, is the fact that every single diet that works based on calories in versus calories out. No diet is any different, and no diet ever has been any different. That is just a fact. So if you're having trouble losing weight, it does come down to how much you're burning and how much you're taking in. Now, a lot of people may actually eat a very small amount and do a large amount of activity. That may be true. It's just you may be a very efficient person, and you may be able to absorb loads of the energy from your food, and when you exercise you may burn a very small amount of it, but it does still come into calories in versus calories out. So start tracking, and it's one thing that I made every single client do. Every single person that I worked with who has succeeded with weight loss were people who were good at tracking, where they would just get an app and type in what they've eaten, and start rough. Again, start with your minimums and build it up over time. Get a set of scales. It's a lot easier than you think to track your food. Just throw your plate on and zero every time you put something on, but just track everything. When it comes to tracking exercise, I used to wear a heart strap, a heart rate monitor. The ones on your wrist, they're better than nothing, but they are highly inaccurate. There's no consistency between any of them. It's just the method itself is rather flawed. So it's really good to get hold of a chest strap. I used to wear that. Again, the calculations are inaccurate on those as well, but it's still better than nothing. So I used to wear that when I was doing all of my training, and that just helped to know how much was going in and how much was going out. So I knew how many calories that I needed to maintain my weight. Obviously, with boxing, it was quite important to maintain my weight. Does anybody else have any more questions to throw in? Again, if you haven't already, just make sure to keep sharing your workouts. We do want to see them. We do talk about them. We do enjoy them in the office. We love people sharing them. You know, it gives us a sense of satisfaction here. You know, we're as much anti-rubbish as everyone else out there. So we're very happy to see when people are genuinely getting a lot of value from the mags and getting value from the stuff that we're putting out there. Anybody have anything to throw in? Right, let's go back to the polls. I can see that people wanting to improvise exercises was very, very, very popular. I answered that one early on, but if anybody has any particular exercises they want some ideas for, throw them out there. Right. Well, we're coming up to the end of the session anyway. You can still throw in a question if you got one. I think that's everything from me. Thank you very much, Elena, for throwing that in there. That's everything from me. I'm always on the other end of Facebook Messenger. I'm always in the group. Send me a message, post your questions. I'm sure everybody will have other answers. Just keep talking and keep learning. There are people in here who are very fit and have been very fit for long periods of time. So keep throwing out your questions because experience teaches you a lot of things. That's all from me. It's been great to chat to everyone, and let me know if you want to do another live chat anytime soon. Right. Ta-ra, everyone.